In this presentation, we will look at two software products from MacroView, MacroView ClauseBank and MacroView Precedent. MacroView ClauseBank streamlines document preparation by making it easy to retrieve and insert standard approved text and graphics. ClauseBank is great for standard clauses in contracts and other legal documents. It is also popular with marketing departments as a way of handling CVs and boilerplate content for tender responses and sales proposals. MacroView Precedent automates document assembly by working through tags in a specially marked up precedent document. Potential applications of MacroView Precedent include engagement letters, deeds and agreements, and complex court document bundles. By combining these two products, you can create legal document preparation solutions that have excellent functionality, but which at the same time are very user-friendly. From a technology perspective, the distinctive thing about both MacroView ClauseBank and MacroView Precedent is that they are based on Microsoft SharePoint, integrated with Microsoft Word and other parts of Microsoft Office. The web-based nature of SharePoint makes these products easier to deploy. The user-friendly SharePoint interface empowers non-technical business users to manage their standard content and the data required for legal document preparation. Importantly, neither of these MacroView products is dependent in any way on custom XML. Let's take a look at MacroView ClauseBank in action. Here we are in Microsoft Word 2007. ClauseBank also runs in Word 2003, and it will run in Word 2010. If I bring up the Insert ribbon, I see the ClauseBank tab. MacroView ClauseBank adds this customization as it installs. Let's choose Clause. The ClauseBank dialog shows a tree of clause libraries and categories within those libraries. I can see all the clauses in each library or category. As I click on each clause, I see a fully formatted preview of that clause, much better than just relying on the name of the clause. A description is also displayed. This provides guidance as to intended usage of the clause. Let's select both our approach and our expertise. From the Logos category, let's filter to show only clauses whose name contains WISE. Here is the logo for WISE Advisors. Let's add that logo to our list of selected clauses. When we press OK, the three selected clauses are inserted at the current cursor position. Note that the inserted clauses are fully formatted. The subheading style has been maintained. That heading style is numbered so that the retrieved clauses are automatically numbered correctly. That's good for this sales proposal. It will be very important as well with legal documents. Click Insert Clause again. Again, our ClauseBank dialog displays. It remembers the library and category that we used most recently. We can jump to our favourite libraries and clauses. Earlier, we saw filtering of the list of clauses by name. We can also search across a clause library to find clauses that contain a word or a phrase within them, e.g. communication. Note that some clauses have double asterisks around their name. That indicates that they have expired and can no longer be retrieved. ClauseBank prevents the use of out-of-date content. Behind the scenes, MacroView ClauseBank uses Microsoft SharePoint as a central store of the reusable clause content. Each clause library is actually a document library in SharePoint. To revise an existing clause or to save a new clause, we simply save a document from Word to SharePoint. Because SharePoint is web-based, the newer revised clause content is immediately available to any user who has read permission to the SharePoint site. Thanks to SharePoint, deployment is much easier than maintaining auto text entries in global Word templates. This slide summarizes the features of MacroView ClauseBank. We saw how available clauses can be organized into categories within libraries. The naming of those libraries and categories is very flexible, whatever makes sense in your organization. Virtual clauses allow common firm-wide content to be conveniently available in multiple libraries, e.g. the library for each practice group, but only need to be maintained once. ClauseBank logs all clause usage. A content administrator can run a report to see which clauses are being used most often and which ones are not used at all. The automatic expiry alert feature of ClauseBank will send an alerting email to the user or group of users that is recorded as the content expert for any clauses that are about to expire. That user can then edit the clause to ensure that it is up to date. The clause will then be available again for selection and retrieval. By the way, ClauseBank can also be used in Microsoft Outlook and Microsoft PowerPoint. Next, we will take a look at MacroView Precedent. MacroView Precedent is an automated document assembly tool with a difference. That difference is SharePoint. During this demonstration, we will see how MacroView Precedent can retrieve data from this SharePoint list. Lists such as this one are a great alternative to using Excel workbooks or Word documents to hold the variable data for a transaction. SharePoint is web-based, which means that this list can be accessed from anywhere, and unlike Excel and Word, SharePoint lists can be updated simultaneously by multiple users. Here we are in Word 2007, with a sample precedent document opened. As with ClauseBank, MacroView Precedent also runs in Word 2003 and will run in Word 2010. The special markup tags in this precedent are highlighted in red. There is an instruction, a variable text prompt, optional clauses, and even a command to run a macro. Let's run MacroView Precedent from the top. Precedent supports answer files, a concept that will be familiar to users of other automated document assembly tools. As it prompts for variable data, in this case a date, MacroView Precedent can display instructional tip text to guide users, in this case as the correct format for a letter date. Next, Precedent allows me to retrieve a record from an existing data store. These details are coming from the SharePoint list that we saw earlier. When we select a record from the list, Precedent automatically retrieves all the column values and uses them to replace all occurrences of the relevant markup tags across the document. For example, first name has been replaced twice with the selected value of Francois. We can skip if we don't know an answer. The tag will remain so that we are prompted when we later revisit the document. Here is an optional paragraph, with another optional paragraph nested within it. Note how it has run a macro to format the currency amount nicely. A popular use of this feature is to save and profile the generated document to a document management system. Choice of one of three sign-offs. Choices can be multiple paragraphs, even multiple pages. The document is now ready to print on letterhead. The MacroView Precedent markup toolbar makes it easy for a precedent content administrator to insert and check the tags that drive the automated assembly. The precedent markup tagging is powerful enough to handle complex legal documents, including packages of documents. The conditional if and set commands are very useful in this regard. Here are some sample legal documents that have already been marked up for use with MacroView Precedent. The first is a deed. Note how it will prompt for the names of the parties. Responses can be entered by the user, or they could be retrieved from an existing store, for example, the Client Matter Management System. This is the master document for a court documents package. This command will prompt for the number of parties to the matter. If we respond with, say, 5, then 5 separate affidavit subdocuments will automatically be included in the generated document package. By combining MacroView Precedent and MacroView ClauseBank, we can create a legal document preparation solution that is very flexible and powerful, but at the same time has minimal cost of maintenance. We achieve this by marking up our precedent documents so that common content is retrieved from the ClauseBank as we are about to use the precedent to generate a new document or document package. That way, we only need to maintain a single copy of the common content, rather than separate instances of the same text or graphic scattered across multiple precedents. Let's use the clause link feature of MacroView ClauseBank to insert a link to a logo in our precedent. MacroView Precedent will automatically expand this clause link as a first step in processing this precedent. We'll also include a tag that will run MacroView ClauseBank during the processing of the precedent. This will allow the user to choose some optional additional clauses from the ClauseBank. Let's save the modified precedent and run it. Note how the clause link to the logo has been automatically expanded. These answers are coming from the answer file that we created earlier. Let's modify this previous response. Now, MacroView ClauseBank is displayed so that we can insert our choice of optional clauses. This slide summarizes the features of MacroView Precedent. As we have seen, Precedent runs in Microsoft Word, which means that we can use familiar Word techniques to mark up and format our precedent documents. The output of MacroView Precedent is a Word document. Importantly, that Word document does not contain any custom XML. MacroView Precedent can even be run in unattended mode, which means that all the responses and variable data are coming from the answer file or from an existing data source. As we have seen, that data store can be a list in SharePoint, but it can also be any data store that can be accessed via a .NET web service. MacroView ClauseBank and MacroView Precedent bring the power of SharePoint to legal document preparation. If you would like a demonstration or to install this MacroView software for evaluation, please use the following details or contact a MacroView partner organization.